Okay, let's get rolling. So I think first off, just interested in having this be a end of the year kind of project update meeting, and the so playing it casual, and just to say that after this 1 hour, we'll have a FoodOn curators meeting and be getting into the nitty gritty of how and it'll be the first one actually ever, first interagency FoodOn curator meeting, and we will be discussing how we want to approach collaborative editing of FoodOn. All right. What else to say? I'm happy to start with the FoodOn project update, um, and then turn to others. But actually, is there anyone new on the call that would like to introduce themselves? Perhaps Handy, and I'm not sure who else might have already introduced themselves. Handy, are you there to say hello? And
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone. I am Hande Kuchik-McGinty, and I recently joined the USDA team to help with the food ontology integrations. Um, and all my degrees are in computer science, but I have a long history of working with interdisciplinary teams. Previously for bio-ontologies, I helped build bioassay ontology and drug target ontology. I also worked with Damien, volunteering for different ontology groups like Obo Foundry Ontologies, OBI in particular. And at one point, we were doing meetings regarding process ontologies together. And anyway, in my previous position, I was at Collaborative Drug Discovery. And at CDD, I helped build a project called BioSA Express, and it uses ontologies and some AI and ML in the backend to help annotate bioassays. They were using the ontologies I helped build in the backend. We further got a project with Stanford and University of Miami that we called OntoloBridge, that helps semi-automatically update ontologies. So I assumed the project manager role there. And right now I'm kind of catching up on the documentation and seeing how we can go forward with ontologies at the USDA. So that's me. Good to be here. Thank you.
great, thanks, Handy. And of course, Handy was there at the last IFO workshop meeting, hosting the whole tools development area. And so looking forward to all sorts of easier editing tools flowing out from all of that work. Anybody else needs to say hello? Okay, so on the agenda, there's FoodOn update, other project updates. I see 2 listed there, and then Myra, Warren, or Jessica, I presume, to talk a bit about subclassing and packaging. So I will start. FoodOn update has really focused on curating this organism times material table. And also I've done an update to the content of the FoodOn website, and we'd look forward to people's feedback on that. So I'll just touch on what I've done by screen sharing. And apparently I have to grant access. Okay. And so apparently, in order to record the contents of my screen due to my new Mac OS upgrade, I have to log out and log in again. So I'm going to do that. And just, it should be quick. So I can assign somebody else a host. So that's interesting. Just a sec. All right, I'm just going to assign, and let's see. Rhiannon, I'm just going to briefly assign you the host while I leave and come back.
No problem.
We can see your screen, but we can't hear you.
And there we go. Okay. Right. So FoodOn, just to say, FoodOn was written originally. The website was crafted with a bit more of an speaking to the converted ontologists approach in its content. But I'd like to move a bit away from that and speak to everybody and sort of gently introduce ontology, key ontology concepts along the way. So this rewrite of the homepage is an effort to go in that direction. And so a little general blurb about FoodOn, its role in the different ontology with respect to other ontologies, Novo Foundry. And then focusing on these food facets inherited from Languel and starting to diagram how food products can be described according to those. Launching into a little bit of how FoodOn has as this separate branch over 9,600 food products, and then talking about the very basics of food, referencing food, how you start talking about food and then building on more complex multi-component foods or more processes and so on into it all, qualities. So that's the homepage rewrite. And so happy to have people's feedback on that. And then the next big change, as well as a little FoodOn resources and explore section, which was mainly there in the original homepage. The last thing I want to say is now there's a facets section, and this is exposing and naming each of the facets or groupings of them. Many of which were on the Languel site, and then quite a number that are now being specialized and developed further in FoodOn. So each of these, just to say, has a little bit more of an indication of where the facet is in FoodOn and what's under it at a glance, and then trying to provide for each facet the simpler instructions or concepts about how a food item would be linked to that facet, whether particular relations are involved because it's a process or a quality, or if it's a facet that's actually a material entity that you would subclass a food product to, but trying to introduce that vocabulary in a little bit separately from how the facet itself is described. So I look forward to feedback and also help in curating these different facets further to meet your own needs. So that's the website update. And then over in terms of our main focus in the last few months, it has been to develop this FoodOn organismal materials table, which is basically plucking existing food items out of FoodOn and moving their labels, definitions, and some other axioms into this table, and then we run robot on it to generate the content that FoodOn then takes in. And the reason we're doing this is because this is a pattern. This FoodOn organismal materials table is a very simple pattern. It's selecting a plant or animal food part, and that's showing up here sort of in the parent class column. And it's pairing it with a particular NCBI taxon species or subspecies reference to make the most general referenceable food item. So the CDNO folks, thanks very much for getting this going. They actually provided the first 60 or so items in this table, and they'll be publishing about their work on that next year. And then Anusha has been helping me to add the other FoodOn items, basic food references, into this table. And so that's the focus of our work right now. And this is in support of enabling more of a communal editing of the FoodOn resource. So we'll be able to call on our curators to come help add new terms to this table and locate the NCBI taxon sources and so on. And then be able to press a button and have that work incorporated into FoodOn. And we'll be moving to this model with other facets of information slowly over the next years. But suffice to say, here's the animal, similar treatment for animals. This is mostly plants, or all plants right now. Similar treatment for animals underway. And for food qualities, that's where we're now adding to some part-times organism entity, we're adding some quality that we have in the food product database for common and easy reference. So this will also be getting the same treatment and generating and being the place where you can edit food items with some quality, and then they get fed back into FoodOn. So that's basically the update for FoodOn right now. We have a number of other partnership activities happening that, but I'll save reporting on those out until next year, especially as some of them still need funding finalization to happen. Any questions about this stuff and directions?
So Damien, this is Naomi. I have a very naive question.
Mm-hmm.
And that's related to, again, the ID, FoodOn ID or codes.
Mm-hmm.
Have you worked out how to meld the various codes that different data sets use?
Okay, so I think you're talking about like cross-referencing to other.
Correct.
Right. So yeah, so one of their priorities for development next year is to make sure that in foods, food tags for nutrient content and EFSA food products are cross-referenced in FoodOn, so that for every food product in FoodOn, we can know which category it would have fit in under EFSA, and that's in order to EFSA Food X2, and that's in order to create an automated conversion. Some folks in EFSA have expressed keen interest in that. So, and then turning to the nutrition side, turning to the nutrition side, we're relying on the CDNO, crop dietary nutrition ontology folks, and their upcoming hierarchy of carbohydrates and lipids and proteins, which is a great effort to organize basically chemical components into a food ontology, food and chemistry perspective, because KEBI isn't laid out, its hierarchy isn't laid out that way particularly. So we'll piggyback on the CDNO effort, and they say they're close to finishing their nutrients and other bioactive compound table. It's not the Encyclopedia Britannica of food compounds, but they are committing to cover quite a number of the NDP or the nutrient database IDs that are showing up in USDA ARS. And we've had feedback from Anders Mahler as well with respect to Eurofur's way of doing things, describing these nutrient components and the InFoods way. And so I think the CDNO folks are adapting their nutrient hierarchy with respect to that feedback. And the organismal material table, Matthew just asked me, sorry, that's a separate topic. The CDNO folks have a spreadsheet that they'll probably be in a position to share pretty soon that shows this whole hierarchy of nutrients and the fats, the lipids, carbohydrates, and minerals, etc. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
I just wasn't sure what the approaches were going to be, but yeah.
Sorry, that your sentence just broke up a little bit. Could you repeat that last part?
No. I said that was helpful because I just was not clear how this was going to be worked upon, and we all know from our many discussions that it's this ability to link that becomes key without making it too cumbersome, with everyone developing their own coding system such that the entire thing might be just relating codes rather than information. That's what I fear.
Right. And so I'll just speak to that a little bit. FoodOn right now, when we imported all the Langwell codes for nutrients, vitamins, we managed to match over half, 2/3, something like that, to KEBI terms. The remainder we didn't match and haven't had the curator prowess to match, not being chemistry buffs within our curation team. But we're planning to switch to the CDNO hierarchy, which is not a massive one, because it's the upper level terms, but the lower level terms, 95% of them in CDNO are actually KEBI terms. So we expect that we're not going to be changing our KEBI references at all. We'll be expanding them a bit to be even more fair data compliant. Okay, just to address Matt.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I would like to ask something. Tommy is here from Joseph Stefan Institute. Actually, I have several questions related to this and maybe some comments. So first of all, you show us this table and all these food IDs and then the food concepts. This is like manually done, right? So people can write there in the table, and then you are doing ontology population. So you are populated the FoodOn with the new instances. Do you know, for example, what is the coverage of instances now? Because we have done one study which was using name entity recognition, and then we normalize all food concepts which were automatically extracted with FoodOn. Actually, we realized that FoodOn has the most coverage from all the ontologies, like using Conto Food, I don't know. Even more, we try to map them to SNOMED City, which is the mostly used in biomedical terms because they have also food concepts. but actually we realized that FoodOn has the best coverage, but it's still like we are missing a lot of the food entities which are not inside. So what we have done,
Right.
we have one study which we can extract everything, and even we know which of them are not mapped to FoodOn, so we can provide you this information, what is missing now there.
Wow.
And also related to the question of Naomi, because we even perform ontology alignment for food concepts, maybe not on nutrient level, but on food level. So we know, for example, which FoodOn code, code, for example, which onto food semantic tag is related. And for example, Hansard taxonomy, SNOMED city. So we have these FoodViz visualization tools where you can see mapping between the codes from different like food standards that are used, like from different food semantic models. And even more, you can, because we have ground truth data set, and also we have uncurated data set, which is a silver standard, there is a possibility of annotators to go there to remove false negatives and to to write the false positive, to remove the false positives and to write the false negatives inside.
Wow, that's great. I look forward to diving in and seeing all of that that work you're doing. And it is an opportunity. It sounds like it's an opportunity to sort of generate several SLIMs or ontology mapping files that can sort of ride alongside resources such as the SNOMED to FoodOn mapping. Is that right? Food terms?
Yes. Yes, and even more, I think this is nice, for example, if you are doing some modeling, because on this way, when you map the FoodOn terms to SNOMED city, it will be easy to perform some correlation between biomedical, for example, disease, treatment, some drugs, and also to find relations with food concepts. And this is, for example, I'm talking about not from ontology development perspective and annotators, but I'm talking most, okay, how we can use then these semantic resources for building models like some predictive models and exploring the relations between, for example, disease, drugs, foods, which are inside, especially for use cases, allergies. I think this is important. So it will be nice if we can curate, for example, scientific published papers with FoodOn, but we can also curate it with SNOMED city for medical terms. But it will be nice if we can align them so we know what we are doing. And this was our goal. So we developed this kind of resources like this mapping system. So what we have done actually is something similar to unified medical language system, like UMLS, but only for the food ontologies. So I will be happy to share.
That would be great. And so can we line you up for a presentation in January? Maybe the our next call, I think I proposed to everybody, will be end of January. Maybe.
I think we can do this. Barbara is also here at the meeting, so we can talk, because actually what we have done, we have really a lot of work which is in that direction. The one is information extraction, like name entity recognition methods for different kind of ontologies. Even we have annotator for FoodOn developed using BERT method. And also maybe we can split the presentation, one for information extraction and one for data normalization, because there is a lot of work which is done. So I think it will be helpful for this group.
Great, great. And what else was, oh yes, right. So I was going to say, so the vast majority of food products are brought into FoodOn. I mean, the low level useful components of FoodOn that most people are latching onto right now are not so much all of the different descriptive facets, but the food product hierarchy of over 9,600 foods items, and then the taxonomy of NCBI taxon organism sources, and then the plant parts, plant and animal parts from anatomy. So between those sort of three things, I think that's the terminology that's being reused the most. Now, when we brought in the Siren FoodOn terms, they were the Languel database, index database of foods, which was the Siren database. They mentioned foods fairly specifically. They would mention whether a food was raw or not. So there's just one other little semantic piece that's missing a lot of the time. And this is what we're manually so far combing through in the food product hierarchy. We're finding beans raw, for example, a food raw, vegetable or plant food raw, as baked in semantic, this rawness is baked into the food concept of the product. And what we're finding is we have to add one more thing to the food times organism, organism times organism anatomy times taxonomy table, having to add a more generic food item in there that the raw food is an extension of or is a subclass of. So just to say, it's like the most abstract piece of information as some chicken leg, We don't know whether it's cooked or not. We don't know whether it's raw. It's a chicken leg though. That's the thing we're just sort of combing through first. That's sort of doubling kind of the number of entities that are in FoodOn, because they need to be in this, in a more abstract form in this organismal materials table. So that'll impact maybe a little bit on your work too, but we can talk about that later.
Where, if you don't mind me asking, since you're on this organismal materials table, Damien,
Yeah.
where is there room to put things like variety or breed, or also whether, for instance, I'm getting milk from a grain-fed versus a grass-fed cow?
Right. So the grain-fed, grass-fed, that's a good one. I actually don't even have that in FoodOn. There is the agricultural production process, which would be where I'd start to look to put in that kind of distinction. Now, in terms of, but what you've just mentioned is a basic food product like milk with extra qualities or process descriptions associated with it. So that ends up being back more on the FoodOn, possibly manually curated, definitely manually curated protege editing file for
Right.
the product. So those kind of entries with the more complicated axioms about exactly what they are, I look forward to the day when the machine learning helps us and just suggests those kinds of entities. But for now, it's human beings looking at them and deciding what to add on in terms of all the other facets to describe that product better. That was part of your question. Maybe that was,
breed and variety was the other part.
breed and variety, right? So, so of course, NCBI taxon in the ovofoundry family doesn't go very often subspecies.
Yeah, that was my point. Yeah.
Right. So what we're doing is we're just going willy-nilly in FoodOn, adding IDs that are subspecies that sit underneath the NCBI taxon hierarchy. So Fuji apple, Macintosh, Spartan, etc. All good candidates for subspecies FoodOn IDs. So we started adding those, but that's intimidating because there are over 900 different apple species on Wikipedia. So, so we certainly invite, for example, specific agricultural schools to do little ontologies to cover all of those things, and then FoodOn would just switch around and reuse those as mini projects. But for now, we are adding species as we need them. I mean, varietals as we need them. There are over 30 wine varietals, but in Wikipedia, there are like another 900 different ones. So.
Right. Yeah, that was my point was, and they all have different biomolecular properties, essentially.
Right. So you want to have that granularity of naming. So we just have to look to other projects to provide that curation.
All right.
Okay. So, and Matthew, I've sent that link in the chat to the organismal materials table.
Yeah, got it already open. Thanks.
I'll say one thing. Okay, our work with USDA, with Naomi and Ka, is to target the foundation foods, of which there are about 129 right now. And we will be covering those in detail in the organismal materials table, as well as whatever else we can add on in terms of facet information. And that's because the foundation foods are now the USDA's reference level of analysis. And the idea is to build that table out of simple raw foods that are measured in meticulous detail in order that models for calculating more multi-component foods and processed foods can derive off of that underlying analysis. Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, let's head to the next group, which is, right, Matthew, No Food Live. Let us know about that.
Yeah, this is just a, I'll turn on my video for this. This is a new effort started by the team at IC Foods. We realize that times are difficult in this COVID time now, and conferences are difficult. So what we thought is we're going to do, rather than trying, nobody's hosting any in-person conferences these days, and online conferences that span multiple days are often hard for people to get to. So we thought, well, what we're going to do is start something that's at a regular time in a regular place in people's calendar, and not too often, so it's not too hard for folks to get to. So nofood.live will be launching the website just before the new year, and then the first episode will be on January 21st, and it'll be the third Thursday of every month after that. We're looking for each episode to have 2 to 3 experts in food and or knowledge graphs. So you don't need to be an expert in ontology/knowledge graphs. You might be an expert in food, but the other guests might be an expert in knowledge graphs or ontologies, or somebody might be an expert in both. We are doing this across the food system, not just about foods and nutrition, but also about food systems, about supply chains, about production methods, what have you. And our very first guest for the show will be this group's own Damian Dooley and Chris Mungle from, you may know from ICBO, and the gene ontology and everything else ontology that Chris touches, it seems like. We'll be talking about COVID and how knowledge graphs about food systems and knowledge graphs about COVID may be combined, especially when it comes to the food production and processing systems. An article just came out today, and I can put it in the chat if folks are interested, about how some of the early crystallization points in terms of the spread of the virus actually occurred in cities where there are meatpacking plants and other concentrations of food system activity. So while food itself is not a vector for COVID, food service workers seem to be the most exposed and the least protected. And so that's what we're kicking off the first episode about. And we'll have another guest from the food system related to the labor efforts. We are just confirming that now, so I can't say who that's going to be on that January 21st episode. But if you are interested in being a speaker about this and would like to be on the No Food Live episodes, the third Thursday of every month, please reach out and contact me. My email address is up at the top of the Joint Food Ontology Workgroup agenda. That's all my plugs over. Thanks, Damian.
Great. Yeah, great. And I'll say, like, it's needed that talk about knowledge graph engineering with respect to all of this is important, because there's so many people wanting to harmonize the way they do things. And the only way that's going to happen is if the knowledge graph engineer folks talk with the ontologists. Okay, next up, One, do you have an update on your ontology work?
Yes, yes, yeah. Thank you very much for giving me the chance to present the update of ONE of the one. And ONE represents the ontology for nutritional epidemiology. And just a few days ago, with a good with kind support from Damien, ONE has been registered in Global Foundry and officially be a member of Global Foundry. So later on, I really hope we can contribute to the food ontology initiative and collaborate with curators from curators of various ontologies to promote the ontology culture in this field. And at the same time, I have to say that ONE is currently mainly focusing on the description of publications. So we also had a meeting with people from OBI-IO regarding the terms, the general terms about the description of document parts. So we suggested 7 terms in total to the OBI and the IO ontology working group, and all of them has been accepted and will be put as the terms of OBI and IAO. So later on, we hope we can still to work together with all of you, and we will try our best to work in this field and see how we can use and reuse terms and to harmonize the terms used in the food science. Thanks.
What are your 7 terms?
Okay, the 7 terms about the document part. I will share the link now I will post the link. It's about different kinds of document parts. For instance, a document part about dietary assessment method, a document part about ethical issues, etc., etc., or like a document part about biases of research. So those terms were not included in the OBI ontology, but they are really general terms. So, and they are very often being used in the field of nutrition science or dietary survey research. So we suggested this general terms in the OBI and the IAO ontology, and to see how we can reuse them as a term to especially describe the document or publications in the field of food and nutrition science. I will share the link very soon.
Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really neat to see the Global Foundry principles at work, with one asking for these upper level terms that they can then specialize into the nutritional research classes for document mining and metadata description. Okay, and ONS, Francesco, are you here to give us an update on that?
Yes, thank you. Just a brief update to let you know that all the works that was performed in the shared dietary terms spreadsheet, it's now in practice. Let's say I made the version 1.2 of ONS, which basically has this diet model with the dietary pattern that determines the diet. It's in GitHub. You can see and download it. It's not yet indexed, let's say. So if you search in Ontology or similar, you will still go to the previous version, just because I would like to tweak a little bit of details. Like I still have to really find the best of property to link the dietary pattern with the diet, and I wouldn't want to create a new one, and I would want to reuse the relation ontology terms. So I still have to find what think is the best one. But the work, let's say it's out there, you can download it and look on Protégé. And then we are trying to, with other, let's say, nutritionists here in Italy, some of them were in the initial publication and let's say development of ONS. We are trying to expand this model with other determinant of the diet. Because for now, this idea that, let's say, the dietary pattern is what is determining the diet, and it depends on a lot of things like cultural, economic, etc. point of view. And there is also an issue in which I'm linking the ONS into the work group. So I'm always working in double, let's say. And that's all, more or less.
Great. As soon as the dietary terms are in the search, are in OS, etc., then we'll be able to bring them in to FoodOn. So I'll bring in that whole chunk from ONS. And just to say, the whole IFAO 2020 workshop series of workshops, we didn't really touch on the whole social the social aspect of food that you're talking about there. And so I look forward to more in that way. We had one presentation about dietary needs and depression and elderly, but that was about it. So I'm expecting a lot more development in that area. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other ontologies you want to report in about progress? If not, then we can move to Mira, Warren, and Jessica, whichever of you is online.
Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Hey.
Yeah, it's just a couple of things popped up when we were trying to use FoodOn. And while we understand that FoodOn is still in its early stages, we just want to point out some of the issues that we ran into.
Okay.
I do have a couple slides just to help illustrate. Let's see, share my screen. Oh, the host has disabled attendee screen sharing.
Okay, I'll get that going for you.
Thanks. Also apologize if there's any background noise. The apartment upstairs is renovating.
No, can't hear anything.
It seems they stopped, hopefully.
Oh, let's see why. Oh, that's weird. I'm not understanding. I'm normally thinking I should be able to offer you co-hosting for sharing. Let me just see. Rhiannon, I just want to, you're listed as host now, Rhiannon. Can you see if you can allow Jessica to share?
Damien, actually, Rhiannon had some meeting conflicts, so she's away from keyboard.
Oh.
Yeah, she actually got conflict.
This is irritating. I had to log out. I thought I logged in as the Grand Poobah that owned everything, but then I transferred hosting over to her. So, and now I'm wandering around Zoom wondering where I can do the change. Let me just, I guess, log out and log in again. I'll try that. Oh, no, I'm called a co-host, me.
Damien, I just shared the link with you over email. It should pop up in your mailbox.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, now I have to answer some kind of verification code. Security upon security. All right. And so this should enable me to share screen to desktop share. Okay, and minimize away.
Mhm.
And more messages about changes in the world.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. We're almost there. Maybe I do a max. Yes. Oh,
Or you can click present up in the top right.
okay. Top right.
Oh, way top, all the way at the top.
Way up. Right.
Yeah. There we go.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is how different people view what a product is. So ontologies. Oh, the
Yeah,
first
sorry.
slide, please.
Sorry.
Yeah. So this GS1 and schema, they just look at it from the supermarket's point of view. They want to see the product and label, the brand, things like that. And consumers, they just care about, they want tuna. They want their tuna. They want to know that it is tuna, it's a fish. And that's kind of where FoodOn operates. And us, we focus on food traceability, where we want to know the exact species of the fish, what kind of can it is, where it came from, everything like that. Next slide, please.
Mhm.
So this is how we're currently doing things, except for hops. We're working with hops and beer. So right now we have hops cascade, which has its own properties from the producer. That is as a RDF type of FoodOn, schema.org, and GS1. And it's also a type of Cascade US, which is just in general what the USDA has properties on Cascade US. And then which is a type of Humulus lupulus, which is the scientific name for the overall genus of hops. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, so right now, because of those three different types of products, so you have your product, which is a subclass, your product, and then from there, the subclass of product, and the lot number that it came from. And then there's a subclass of product, lot number, and then serial number from there. But all three of these have to be typed in GS1 and schema as well. And maybe FoodOn, we're not sure yet. But so far we have them as a type of product from FoodOn, like seen from the slide before. Next slide, please. So we took this example from FoodOn, from what we found before. So this is just the hierarchy of albacore tuna that is canned. This is just from a screenshot from FoodOn. Next slide, please. So far, this is what things look like, but because everything is a subclass, some problems arise when combining GS1, schema, and FoodOn together. So for one of the examples is fish food products need to be refrigerated, which is true. But because everything is subclassed, that means that ontologically speaking, you must put your tuna cans in the fridge, which is not true because there's been a transformation. But because all subclasses inherit the properties from the class that it belongs to, that would make that part of it true. And the same goes with the container or the aluminum can. So if it's part of the subclass albacore canned, that would mean that the lot would be all in one can, which is not necessarily true. It's a bunch of cans inside of a crate, and that's the lot.
Question,
yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Go for it.
Is it GS1 saying that all fish food products must be need refrigerating?
So this is just an example.
It seems to me there's a mistake. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
if there are properties for that class, that would mean it would be true all the way down to the product lot and serial number. That's just the example that we're illustrating there.
Okay.
Mhm.
The aluminum can containment problem was inside of FoodOn, and it mysteriously disappeared at some point. But that's the one that actually we find interesting, because the ontology hard codes a lot of these things, but the one integration point in between FoodOn and GS1 is essentially it creates incompatibility, especially with your siren import.
Mm-hmm.
So yep, this is pretty important because this is an issue that's been going on in Canada for a few months now, and basically what happened was brewers, in response to emergency demands for hand sanitizer, they started producing hand sanitizer, but they started putting it in cans that are used. Beer cans, aluminum cans is what they had on hand. And any chemist would have realized that you can't put hand sanitizer in this type of aluminum can, because the alcohol content would render the metal unstable, or the point is the brewers had no idea this would occur. So they were just, trying to do the right thing, and they had no idea of the interactions, but any chemist would have. So this is just something that you can put inside of an ontology and discover problems before they occur, so that you don't have situations like this and having to do a massive recall, because this is actually pretty dangerous if there's a breach in containment, because then that would be a fire hazard.
Mm-hmm. Oh, is that the last slide?
Yeah, that's the last slide. So these are just kind of some of the issues that we found and pointed out.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I am totally interested in that. For example, I was trying to cast FoodOn's foods that are canned, for example, as a reference to the food and then surrounded by a can, that kind of thing, to sort of keep them separate, but really interested in understanding the logical repercussions of that relationship thing. So it would be great to work with you to see whether it's changes in the modeling of packaging, for example, that can solve this, or changes in taxonomy. I'll just mention one thing, which is, for example, we made a mistake in FoodOn of thinking we couldn't reference NCBI taxon entities as the source of the food, because it seemed like that was just a taxonomic reference. It wasn't a reference to a whole organism, fur, hands, feet, etc. But I've been corrected by my peers over Chris Mungal that indeed an NCBI taxon can be taken to be a reference to an organism. You don't know what life cycle stage that organism is. It could be a little egg. It could be a giant 20-foot creature, but we can take that to be the whole organism reference. So now FoodOn is switching to that. But what that means is, if you're looking at it, tuna steak, you can't say it is a tuna. You can't say that apple in front of you is a Malus domesticus. It's a fruit, a part, an anatomical part, and it derives from. That's why we made that big move to that. So we're not typing food items as directly subclassed of the NCBI taxon.
Okay.
Okay, well, thanks for that. And so can you tell us where your work is going in the next year on this stuff? You're obviously working with trying to tackle the GS1 schema product traceability forward and backward.
So right now, currently, we are focused on providing traceability for beer. So that includes going to the having traceability from the suppliers all the way down to beer cans themselves as well. So we need to because the problem with hops also is that there are different properties based on soil types and terroir. So being able to know exactly what did you put in your beer, where it came from, and hopefully have brewers have a better idea of what their what types of hops to put in there, finding more relationships between brewers and their suppliers, but also, you know, having a better idea of what's in your beer, where is it coming from for the consumers down the road. So that's what we're currently doing right now. And with GS, yeah, we're just, we want something that works now so that it may not be perfect, but from the client's point of view, they won't really see it.
And the opportunity, I think, with GS1 is that once you're into that ecosystem, anything that has a UPC or an EAN or a GTIN opens up this entire massive knowledge graph of data that also ties with schema.org. So now it's, you know, it's a bit of a nightmare from a logical consistency perspective, but you can see where you can tie in a whole bunch of supermarket items, pull in all of their data about their nutritional values, and basically follow somebody's diet just by having them scan every UCP, every item that they're putting into their fridge. So there's an interesting direction there in terms of saying we have a global knowledge graph to work with for everybody's uses.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the full continuum of product identification. And of course, the USDA folks saying, sure, those nutritional figures are really based on reality and not just estimates of estimates of estimates.
And
okay,
that,
well,
no, I'm sorry, Damien, let me just pick up one point.
Sure.
The interesting bit, which is the thing that we're dealing with right now with hops, is that as with the store-bought tuna can, there's the USDA estimate of what a tuna can should have as a nutritional value. Then there's the brand's average nutritional value based on their actual suppliers. And then there's that can's actual metrics. And the difference between the three is going to be a very interesting little piece of research to do.
Something you can sort of analytically test too. Great. Okay, well, that wraps our hour. This has been great, and I look forward to hearing more. Now, I was going to say, you know, the FoodOn discussion list, I have been using it more specifically for FoodOn announcements and changes, but people are free to use that list to announce further progress in their own food-related ontologies to everybody on the list. I think there are over 70 or more subscribers now to that. So that might be a channel for periodic announcements about progress on your projects. Okay, so I'll send out, I think it'll be the last Wednesday of January that we'll do the next call. And thank you all for participating, and look forward to hearing from you again next year.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Damien.
Yeah.
Thanks, Damien.
For those of you who are on the FoodOn curation, just hang on to the line here.
Is Hyundai staying on for the FoodOn curation group?
I am.
Yeah.
You are? Okay, great. I'm leaving.
All righty.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Yep.
Okay.
Are we going to keep? Are we going to keep this recording rolling, or are we going to stop and start a new one?
Very good point. Very good point. Let's stop that one.